Look at this beautiful map of Central America from 1850, but look how wantonly parts of the map just blow past that neat line. I like this. Check out this beautiful geological map of New Hampshire. But see those little islands that would have been clipped off by the neat line? The cartographer was like, let's put them in anyway. This 1920 USGS map of the Colorado River, not even a neat line can contain its erosional powers. This map of Europe could have been sized to fit within the neat line, but why? This school map of Iowa coaxed generations of kids to think creatively about their confines. This Brazilian cartographer knew that to fit Brazil inside the box would just be boring. Same with this map, and good grief, look at this map. The neat line of this survey map wanted to slice off just a sliver of this reserve. Not today. When did we become so timid? Neat lines were made for stepping on, and that's just what we'll do. So I'll just make a map real quick that's worthy of stepping over a neat line. I'll choose the outdoor base map style, which is new and awesome. I'll add some imagery to this and blend it in to make it a little bit more bold, and add some hill shade. And I'll give it a multiply blend mode so it adds shadows, and I'll duplicate it so it's really cool looking. Now I'm going to insert a layout. I'll choose tabloid, which is 11 by 17. You can pick whatever you want. And I'll insert my map here. And I'll activate it so I can navigate so it's just to the edge of my extent without going over. And now I'll open up the properties of my map frame, and instead of 11 by 17, I'm going to make it 2 inches smaller, which means I can afford 1 inch of bleed on the edges, 1 inch by 1 inch. And I'll get rid of this outline, which is around my map frame by default. That's important. And next I'm going to unembed those dynamic base map service credits and just put them where I want them and restyle them so that they're very small. This is an important step. If you don't do it now, it'll bite you later on. So definitely do this. And next I'll add a grid to my map frame from the insert menu. And by doing this, I'll also get to make a crazy bonkers over the top neat line. That's the whole point. Crazy neat line to get stepped on. So I'm going to add a bunch of lines to this, really ornate, like no neat line really should be, but it's fun to do anyways. I'm splurging. I never make neat lines, might as well go over the top. So I'll get rid of all these elements and leave only the labels and the grid lines. I'll make the labels nice and small. I'm gonna have 2 sets of grid lines. 20 degrees and one of them every 5 degrees. And this isn't a video about making neat lines and grids. I'm just fast forwarding through this so we can get something to step on in a second. But having a grid on your map will make lining up the patch elements a lot easier later on. So do yourself a favor and cook up a grid. And for those grid lines, make sure that their end cap style is set to butt instead of round, or else you'll have some spillover from the grid lines at the edge of your map. Okay, neat line goofing. You know, you can right click your map frame and edit the vertices. You can change the shape of your neat line. So in this case, I'll add some vertices and I'll make it curved, that Bezier curve. But watch what happens. All that does is reshape my map, and the neat line actually awesomely accepts it. That's cool and everything, but we want our neat line to stay put so we can spill the map over the neat line. Our trick is to create a copy of our map frame and duplicate it on the map. We'll use this as little patches where we need them. So I'll open the property of this duplicate map frame's grid, and I'll just clean it up. I'll get rid of the labels, I'll get rid of the neat line, leaving only the map and the grid itself. Now I have a little copy of the map that I can resize, and it'll maintain its scale as I resize the extent of this map frame. And I'll position it roughly where I want it to go. And now I can activate this map frame and pan it, being careful not to zoom, but pan only, to position it just so. And I can exit out of that map navigation and just kind of resize this, kind of fine tuning. Invariably, I have to change the size. And when you change the size, you also have to dive back in and reposition the map within it. It's a little bit like sleeping with a blanket that's too short. And when it's roughly in place, then you can really zoom in and fine tune. And this is when having a grid on your map is really helpful. Really, I'm just lining up my grid lines. And now it's time to reshape this instead of just a rectangle. So I'll right click it and choose Edit Vertices. And I'm going to drop some vertices right at the extent, the maximum extent of where I know this has to go. And I'm being careful not to reposition any vertices larger or smaller than these maximum extents, because that'll actually change the geographic position of the map within the map frame. And then again, really it's like sleeping with a blanket that's too short. So here I go, snapping in all kinds of additional vertices to give it a nice curve. The more vertices you add, the nicer and smoother it will look. I rough it in and then tend to add a vertex between, base vertices. And, there we go. Take that, neat line. But look at the labels that I've covered up partially along the neat line. I'm going to add a patch. So I'm just going to insert a rectangle and make it a solid white fill. Just cover up the bit of obstructed label that I need. And I'll nestle that between my two map frames. So it's underneath my map frame patch and above the baseline map frame. So now I don't see any partially obstructed edge neat line labels. And I can duplicate this as many times and patch up as many partially obstructed neatline labels as I need. And that is pretty much the trick. Duplicate the map frame, remove any of its neatline elements, and then reshape its vertices to follow whatever contours you think looks best. And be sure to apply neatline spillover patches early and often. Have fun doing it. Take great relish in breaching the neatline. And tip your cap to those bold cartographers of the past. Okay, now that the unsuspecting viewers have fallen away, let's add a paper texture to this map. From Living Atlas, I'll search for paper texture. I'll choose this folded paper texture. This adds a cool semi-transparent tiled layer to my map, but it kind of washes out the colors. So I'll use the overlay blend mode so I can keep the texture of the paper without washing it out. But this is only affecting my map area and not the white paper background beyond the neatline. So what I'll do is I'll create a new map and just insert this paper texture once more all by itself. Then in the layout, I'll insert this new map, which is only paper texture, on top of everything. And then I'll drag it to the very bottom. So now we have a paper texture on the outside of the map and a paper texture in the map. The only thing left to do is to activate this background paper texture and just line it up. Make sure it lines up with the map itself. Neatlines aren't the boss of you. They're just an opportunity to do something fun and cool.